Welcome to Business Week 2016. How many of you attended the first session this morning? How about the middle session today? All right. So it's a long day for you guys, but you've been diligent and stayed at the course with us, and I know you've done that because we've had some astounding speakers, haven't we? Well, it even gets better, okay? It gets better this evening in terms of our guest speaker as well. And then, of course, tomorrow, for many of you, we start again in the morning. We have a number of excellent sessions all day tomorrow as well. I do want to remind you again that we are, if you are still interested in having an executive mentor, make sure you get online and get your application in, because we'll be doing that mixer in a couple weeks. Now, for those of you that are just here this evening, now let me introduce myself. I'm Becky Porterfield, and I'm the Dean of the Hill U.S. Bank College of Business. And throughout the audience, if you'll wave your hand, faculty and staff, those of you around here, just raise your hands, okay. So they're all here. They've been with us all day, and they'll be with us tomorrow. In fact, they organized and put this amazing, amazing business week together for us. So I'd like to just give a brief thanks to our sponsors this evening. Some of you had the opportunity to have plenty of chicken biscuits, I understand today. There'll be more of those tomorrow. They're from Chick-fil-A. CDK Global, great sponsor for us, Western and Southern Financial Group, Northwestern Mutual, Karate, and PepsiCo. Tomorrow we'll have pizzas for lunch for free, so they will be either in the room, or we may put them down in the lobby, we'll see, so that you can get access to those. So we got a little lunch and a little breakfast for you tomorrow. So looking forward to a fabulous, fabulous day tomorrow. It's my privilege now to introduce one of our student organizational presidents. As I've said earlier today, we've taken our Student Advisory Council, which consists of all the presidents of all the clubs in the College of Business, and we meet every month, and they provide me, as your dean, insight in terms of the things that they feel are important to you as a student body, and changes and directions that we need to take. And so this evening I have the privilege of introducing Veronica Lopriato, okay, and she is the president of the Northern Kentucky Marketing Association, and she's going to introduce our speakers this evening. Okay. Veronica?
Thank you, Dean Porterfield. I have the honor to introduce this evening's keynote speaker. Regan Foreman joined Nickelodeon MTV Networks as Vice President Creative Strategy in May 2013. In her role, she is responsible for providing leadership and creative direction on all consumer products brand strategies. Whether it be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures or SpongeBob SquarePants t-shirts, she is accountable for ensuring the story is being extended into the physical world for all ages to enjoy. Regan began her career working in the film industry, both in front of the camera, acting in small roles on TV and in films, such as American Gothic, Just Shoot Me, Enough, and Grey's Anatomy Season 1, as well as behind the camera working in casting and producing. Regan joined Disney Pixar in Los Angeles to lead creative operations for the Consumer Products Division, specifically filmed entertainment, and focused primarily on toys product development. In 2007, she was appointed to lead all product development and marketing operations for Disney Pixar Filmed Entertainment. Regan is an NKU graduate with a degree in theater arts. Currently, she lives just outside New York City with her husband, Oded Gross, and 2 children. Please join me in welcoming Regan Foreman.
Okay, a quick word on the title of this lecture. The business school asked me for a title before I started writing the lecture, so while I fully intend to talk about navigating corporate politics, there is nothing in my lecture about being brave. So I fully advocate that as a lifestyle, though. All right, let's go. Every year at the Walt Disney Company, they have a self-evaluation program. During this period of time, employees write extensively on how they've performed on behalf of the company. Each employee writes paragraphs on their successes and, more significantly, on their shortcomings. Disney then uses this information to help employees improve by creating programs and individual initiatives that focus on their employees' weaknesses. They do this in hopes of aiding for the growth so that those employees can lead their way up the corporate ladder. I worked for the Walt Disney Company for 13 years, and I can tell you that I did not start moving up any ladders until I stopped focusing on my weaknesses and started playing to my strengths. All right. I'm going to give you a lecture today about navigating corporate politics. I like to think that navigating corporate politics is one of my bigger strengths, but more importantly, I'd like for you all to think that so that this lecture has credibility. I can tell you not to dwell on my weaknesses because, like I said, I don't like to talk about them or focus on them, but one of them rhymes with I don't have a SchMBA. Consequently, I would not be where I am today if I did not know how to navigate corporate politics. So where am I today? Today I'm the vice president at Nickelodeon. And before anyone gets too impressed, you should know there are a lot of vice presidents at Nickelodeon. And I don't say this in any way to belittle my achievement, just to keep it in perspective. I'm the vice president of creative strategy and editorial and planning for the Nickelodeon Consumer Products Group. Before that, I worked at the Walt Disney Company. Heard of that? Before that, I worked in casting in Los Angeles and in Wilmington, North Carolina. And before that, I worked in Hollywood, in lots of places in the entertainment field on both sides of the camera, as Veronica said. And before that, I was a student at NKU. I owe a lot to my education at Northern Kentucky University, and one of the things I learned at NKU is I'm capable. You know, I'm not an idiot. Yeah, I can probably figure it out if you just tell me what to do. I can learn things, and most things I'm required to do, I'm pretty good at. And some of those other things I'm required to do, I'm excellent at, and those are the things that I call my strengths. And those are the things that help me manage workplace politics. So let's dive in. In preparing for this lecture, I read a lot of articles so I could plagiarize. Not a lot, just a little enough to sound impressive. And one of the articles I read, and I won't cite the source because then it wouldn't be plagiarism, defines workplace politics as the use of power and social networking within an organization to achieve changes that benefit the organization's individuals within it. I find that definition absolutely confusing, but I kept it in my lecture because I wanted to fulfill my need to plagiarize. In the very general sense of terms, I would like to define workplace politics as the unwritten rules. The things that they probably do not teach you in business class. These are the things you probably don't read in a book, and possibly the things that you will not retain after this lecture, but I thank you so much for attending. It's hard to know in advance what these unwritten rules are because they are unwritten. And they are different depending on the corporate culture. But there are 3 rules that I find, no matter where I am, what environment I'm in, I need to remember. And that helps me navigate the political dynamic. And one, as I just clicked, is to learn the different communication styles of the people that you will be working with, and then learn how to be versatile enough to communicate with them in that style. Second, perception is more important than results. So know how you are perceived, and know how you want to be perceived if you want to move ahead. And third, centers around integrity in the workplace and the idea of karma. Okay, what are communication styles? What does that mean? You guys may have studied this, I don't know, but there's a tool out there called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. It's a questionnaire designed to indicate psychological preferences on how people perceive the world and then make decisions. And there are 4 communication styles. The driver. These people are very demanding and oftentimes blunt. They want just the facts. They don't care about the details. So when you go talk to them, be prepared to get to the point. The expressive. These folks tell you about their weekend. They love to chat. They're open to new ways of working, and they love the spotlight. The amiable. They like to work behind the scenes. Usually very upbeat and spontaneous and great team players in the work dynamic. And finally, the analytic. They love the details, the method, the spreadsheets. These people love data. And ultimately, you will have to learn to work with, and you'll have to learn to get along with all of these personality types. All right, one moment. I just clicked the wrong button, but that up there is Andy Mooney. He's the president, or was the president, of Disney Consumer Products back when I was there. And I once had a meeting with him. Andy, I'd never met him before, but I had heard that when it comes to Andy, you need to get to the point. As if to drive this point home, the meeting that I had scheduled with him, I was given a 2:55 meeting time. It wasn't 3, because he had another meeting at 3. And it wasn't 2:30, because apparently he had a meeting at 2:30. As far as I know, he had a meeting at 2:45 as well. To say Andy Mooney was a driver is an understatement. He embodied the expression, be bright, be brief, be gone. If I followed my expressive instincts and came in with some funny anecdote in the hopes of breaking the ice with Andy, then he would lose interest in me so fast my head would spin. And ultimately, I wouldn't get what I wanted from the meeting. So I figured out how to communicate with him, what I needed to convey, what I hoped to achieve, and I made it as succinct as possible without diminishing the significance of what I wanted. So I arrived at his office early, because early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable. And my meeting started promptly at 2:55. Andy greeted me. He was very nice. And more importantly, at 2:55, he was ready to hear what I had to say. I immediately launched into an important headline of my presentation. I then made my request. I got the answer that I wanted. I thanked him, and I said goodbye, and I walked out of the room. I walked out of Andy's office, and I took a deep breath, and I looked at my watch, and it was still 2:55. I had a meeting with the president of Consumer Products, Andy Mooney, that lasted less than a minute. But the meeting was a successful one because I attribute that in large part because I knew how to communicate with him. All right. John Lasseter. Hopefully you know who he is. He is the founder of Pixar Animation Studios. I met with him many times when I worked at Disney, when I managed the Pixar business. He is certainly as busy as Andy Mooney, but unlike Andy, John likes to talk. He is a storyteller. He will tell you all about how his kids never even knew there was a Target until 1995 when they walked in. Toy Story had just come out, and they found his toys on the shelf. Oh my God, Dad, they can buy your toys from the movie. That was the first time they'd been in a Target. He's very expressive. He's what we call an expressive. He likes to chat. He wants to know. He's curious. He's very interested in what you have to say. He likes to give hugs that last a little too long. John Lasseter loves two things, cars and animation. And he was working on Cars 2, and that's when I started to work on the Pixar business. And Mattel Toys, they were doing the die-cast cars. If any of you know the 1/55th scale cars that came out. Like if any of you have little brothers, you know that they probably had 1,000 of them in their house, or 310 to be exact. Mattel Toys was developing the packaging design for Cars 2. And they needed John Lasseter's buy-off before they could send the designs to China. They needed some time with him to get his approval. They requested 15 minutes with John, just to get his buy-off real quick. And I knew from the moment they made that request of 15 minutes that it would never be enough time to get John Lasseter to approve those designs. 15 minutes was not even enough time to get John to walk around the room and hug everybody. John is an expressive, and that alone taught me that he's going to want to dig in. He was going to want to know the details. He was going to want to hear the whole story. And he was going to need an hour with Mattel, and that's the time I got them. And guess what? Guess how long it took them to get these designs approved? 1 hour. Thank you. Thank you, Mattel. Anyway, understanding people's communication styles not only refers to how much information they get, but how the information is delivered. It's important to know what to email, when to text, when to speak on the phone, and when to speak in person. I can tell you what's lost in a text or in an email is tone. Emoticons do not take the place of emotions. You may know this. So if you need to emphasize something, do it over the phone or in person. If something just warrants a quick reply, some piece of information that cannot be misunderstood, an email or text is probably fine. Though I must tell you, if someone writes an email to a whole bunch of people, please carefully consider whether it is very necessary and appropriate to reply all. In most cases, I will find that it is not. Back in 2007, when I was working at Disney, someone wrote an email regarding overtime payment procedures, and that email was sent to their team of 10 people. Or rather, they thought that email was sent to their team of 10 people. It was sent to the entire Walt Disney Company. There are over 100,000 people who are employees at the one Walt Disney Company. And 1.2% of those people thought it would be okay to reply all. 1.2% of 100,000 people, that's about 1,000 emails that were in my inbox. And do you know what the most common reply all was to that email? I don't think I'm supposed to be on this email. Do you know what the second most common reply all was? Everyone, please stop replying all. Like, I know what I'm saying sounds crazy, it sounds ludicrous, and it sounds like common sense, and it doesn't warrant a place in a business lecture for students. They should know better. But guess what? It seemed like common sense back in 2007, and yet there were 1,000 emails in my inbox. When you work at a big corporation, believe it or not, you're passing information back and forth. That is essentially the majority of any job. Doesn't matter what your title is, how high up the ladder you are. You are more often than not replying, relaying important information, so it's critical that you learn how to communicate that important information properly and effectively. I can't tell you how many presentations I get to sit through that are painfully boring. Presentations, the main medium for communication and communicating information. They are usually very dull. They are built by people who not only don't know how to communicate, but they only communicate in marketing talk. They deliver words like synergy and incremental and paradigm. And they don't even have an inflection in their voice. So break that paradigm and learn how to present in a way that will actually engage your audience and doesn't use those cliche business terms. The abuse of which can seriously hurt your career. I mean that. Don't start using them, even though you've learned them here. All right, start with a joke. That's my big thing. I'm sure you've heard this many times before, that there's a reason for it, because it works. It works when you're presenting humor, especially humor born out of honesty, is the quickest way to connect with an audience. When someone laughs, they are usually at their most receptive. They are ready to hear whatever it is you have to say. If you start with a joke, you can probably buy yourself 5 minutes of boring presentation. And add some humor, don't overdo it, as this can distract people from your purpose, but a good joke can be a great way to start a presentation. And a word of advice, when adding a joke to your presentation, don't tell a bad joke. You want to tell a joke that will build rapport. Rapport means sameness. You become equal with your audience, so they in turn might say, hey, she's one of us. I want to hear what she has to say. We are equals. You know, when I came out a few minutes ago and Veronica introduced me and I said, hey, thank you, that my